Recording of BIE project 8468. Firstly, starting off with the data and assumptions page. How the rates and taxes were calculated were projected. They were projected on a straight line graph in order to project their values for the next 5 years. These were included with the levies as well, and rental incomes and the rates and taxes. The criteria for determining the MAR was preset with traditional inflation rates, expected rates of inflation, anticipated change in the rate of inflation, if any, over the life investment usually taken at 0%, and this total to be 17.5%. Now, the analysis conducted was taken on a elimination basis, where the first two investment options, the renting out of the apartment where it is unfurnished and the renting out of the apartment where it is placed on Airbnb, these two in particular were similar, so they were analyzed and weighed against each other, and then the more feasible of the two would then be weighed against the unit trust. Starting with the unfurnished apartment, all expenses were calculated as stated before with the straight line graph projections. A loan was taken out in order to finance all of the costs. The costs were consistent in both projects, so the repayments essentially were the same. In order to calculate the loan repayment, it was taken on a single interest that doesn't change on a straight line basis, and the mortgage would also be repaid on a monthly basis. The reason that the loan repayment and the mortgage repayment was separated were because the mortgage repayment is over a longer lifespan, in this case over 15 years, rather than the loan payment that was taken out for the initial costs or the once-off expenses in order to refurbish the apartment. So each of them were taken separately. In order to calculate the feasibility, an after-tax cash flow table was used. All of the expenses were listed, the headings, maintenance, equipment. There was no equipment, hence that column is empty. In particular, there was appreciation instead of depreciation because of the nature of the asset. It is a house, and a house does appreciate value, so that was also taken into account. The reason for the negative after-tax cash flow is because of the high loan repayments, which in this case, or in some cases, may be extended over a longer period and would not need to be as strenuous over a 5-year period. The MVV was then calculated in this scenario to be the given value, as can be seen. Moving on to the renting, the Airbnb. The difference with this analysis is that the valuation of the apartment in terms of rental income was not stated. Therefore, certain assumptions needed to be made. After research on Airbnb in the area of Linwood, close to Menlyn as well, a cost per night was gathered of 480 rands, and then that cost was then used to derive a per month and therefore a per year basis over the 5 years. Also incorporated into this were the hosting fees of the Airbnb. This was a very erratic and broad valuation, in the sense that if the person, if she decides to take out and place her and list her apartment on Airbnb, she runs the risk of the apartment not being rented out 100% of the time due to the short-term basis. So for 25%, in this case, and the assumption was stated that it is possible that for 25% of the time there is no one occupying the house, therefore there will be no income coming in, and that was also incorporated into the analysis. But in this scenario, in this case, it was stated that 60% was the apartment was occupied for 60% of the year. The tax rates in both cases were taken from the standard SARS tax rates due to her age and her occupation and her profile. She's then placed in that bracket, and the calculations were then derived from that. Again, the negative cash flows are due to the strenuous loan repayments, but due to the nature of the analysis that we are conducting, the two NPVs, you would then take the least negative of the two, which would therefore be renting the Airbnb. Now, moving on to the unit trust, this was a shorter analysis due to the fact that tax was implemented at the end of the term, but there were calculations that occurred before. I'm not going to go through each and every one of them. I feel like they are visible. But how I decided to implement the unit trust is I used two unit trusts, both from Old Mutual, and I will state why they are both from Old Mutual soon. The first one has a higher, the second one has a higher unit gain, and the first one has a low unit gain. Just for the sake of spreading capital and making sure that you don't put all your eggs in one basket, so to speak. So the amounts invested were split. Calculating the values was done on a per year basis. So each amount was invested and put over, allowed to accumulate over a year, and then would be reinvested over the second year and so forth over the 5-year period. This was done for both trusts, and a total amount was then acquired. The tax rate for this was done with capital gains, and this capital gains is a taxable amount on an income that comes in for acquired assets. So the tax was then calculated and subtracted from the total profit, and the profit is now visible there. Calculating the NPV, taking into account the standard interest rates that are there, this was the value that was then acquired. So, as can clearly be seen, those two, the first two are in the red, in the negatives, and the unit trust value is in the positive, which states that the option of selling out is a more beneficial or more feasible or more profitable option for her to take due to the strenuous loan repayments that would occur if she was to then take out a loan and pay off the mortgage, as well as all of the costs that would be incurred. Thank you very much.